Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Battles of Legend Crystal Revenge just dropped a few weeks ago, and it's a release that's got a lot of eyes on it, which, to be fair, is a staple of any Battles of Legend release. They tend to feature a number of much sought out reprints, both of the expensive and rare to find to common staple variety, but they also introduce a lot of new cards that are either straight from the anime, or were included in a variety of other special products that we have no hope of ever replicating here in the TCG. And this time is no different. From Eraser to Tenzen Yanagi, we've got a ton of new imports from a variety of characters. But the problem is that they hardly qualify as archetypes, and they sure as heck don't have enough cards to carry an episode. The coolest thing we have in this set are the Advanced Crystal Beasts, which we've already covered, Doodle Beasts, which have 3 cards, and thankfully the focus of today's episode, Golems. Piloted by one of the 6 Ignis in the Vrains anime, EARTH, Golem is one of many archetypes that fans are still waiting on today, alongside the likes of Hydrodrive, Armatos Legio, and Drone. And let me tell you, once Fortress Drone Beehive comes out, we are in trouble. But for the fans of the soft-spoken and steady EARTH, you've got a few crumbs to tide you over in the meantime. So let's dig into our new roster, see how they're all structured, then see if we can find any surrounding molehills that can help us form a mighty mountain. It's time to learn about our resident rockman with Golems. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what I do. Once we get to 50k, we'll be doing our next 5Ds video on Akiza, and every sub helps. Also, check out my Discord where we have one of the best descriptions of Vernisylphs I've ever seen, and my Twitch where you can watch me put all my lessons to the test live. And if you want to go that extra mile, join my Patreon where you can get my videos early, help us reach these video milestones, and become part of the credits like these lovely people. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. So what's the deal with Golems? Well, they're a series of Earth attribute Cyberse type monsters that focus on, and you might have guessed this from the series it's from, link summoning. In particular, our strategy surrounds Golem Crystal Heart, which will use its abilities to enhance our more traditional boss monsters who are really good at owning the battle phase, both yours and your opponent's. But before we get into the rich mineral deposits of our payoffs, first we gotta lay some groundwork. And to that end, we're going to start with Golem Pebble Dog, a level 2 monster with 300 attack and 1000 defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can take a Golem Pebble Dog from your deck and either add it to your hand or special summon it. Also, you can't special summon for the rest of the turn except Cyberse monsters. And if this card is sent from your hand to the grave, you can add a Golem card from your deck to your hand. These effects are once per turn, so you can't just chain summon doggies, but it does open some pretty neat options. You either get 2 material onto the board, or get 1 pebble loaded into your hand to trigger the search effect, which does become very relevant. It's an excellent starter for the theme, and really shows that Golem's got that dog in them. Golem Rock Hammer is a level 6 monster with 1800 attack and 2400 defense, and if this card is in your hand, you can discard 1 other Cyberse monster to reduce this card's level by 2 until the end of the turn, thus making it a level 4 monster, so you can normal summon it without tribute. Speaking of which, while on the field, you can tribute this card to special summon 3 Golem tokens, which are level 1 Earth Cyberse monsters with 0 attack and defense. Also, you can't special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except Cyberse monsters. This makes for an even better opening than Pebble Dog, provided you have a Cyberse in hand to discard for the normal summon. And it gets even better if Pebble is the card you discard, because then you get that sweet search. With this, you get 1 more material to mess around with, the only downside being that you might have to get a bit more creative with your link summoning if you want to go outside the usual Golem lines, since some monsters are a little finicky and require effect monsters. But that's never stopped intrepid duelists in the past, so if your problem is that you really want to nail link summoning, then this hammer makes for a pretty good solution. And that's all of our main deck monsters actually. Though to be fair, Cyberse has no shortage of great generic support cards, so I'm sure our tech picks section will have a ton of monsters to fill in the blanks. For now, let's talk about the centerpiece of the entire strategy, Golem Crystal Heart, a Link 2 water monster, keep an eye on that for later, with 0 attack, requiring 2 Cyberse monsters as material. While on the field, you can target an Earth Link monster in your grave and special summon it to your zone this card points to, and if you do, place a G-Golem counter on this card. And an Earth Link monster co-linked with Crystal Heart gains 600 attack for each G-Golem counter on it, it can make a second attack during each battle phase, and also it deals piercing battle damage. Sheesh, that is a doozy. Kinda wish there was more ways to co-link with this, but its arrows basically make it a one co-link kinda gal. But with bonuses like that, you probably wouldn't do that even if you could. Even just a 600 point bonus is backbreaking when tied with the non-restricted double attack and piercing. And on top of that, the longer Crystal Heart sticks around, the deadlier that gets. And it's f***ing tragic. Next slide! G-Golem's Stubborn Menhir is a Link 2 monster with 1500 attack, requiring 2 Earth monsters as material. If this card is special summoned from the grave, you can target an Earth monster in your grave that can be normal summoned or set, and either add it to your hand or special summon it. But if you do special summon it, you negate its effects, and also banish it when it leaves the field. That seems a little convoluted. Not only do you have to summon this, but from the grave to get that effect, but it's actually a lot simpler to pull off than you might think. Especially with Rockhammer's effect. First, you make those 3 tokens, use 2 to summon Stubborn Menhir, then link that in the remaining token to make Crystal Heart. Then you can use its effect to summon back the Menhir, perhaps even at link point, get that first G-Golem counter, and then you can revive the Rockhammer. It'll get banished once you link it off, of course, but who cares? Now you can link climb it even higher. So keep an open mind about it, and don't be stubborn about banishing material. G-Golem Invalid Dolmen is a Link 3 monster with 2800 attack, requiring 2 or more Earth monsters as material. While on the field, your co-linked monsters are unaffected by monster effects activated on your opponent's field. Your opponent must attack this card if able, and once per turn you can discard a Cyberse monster to draw a card. And if this co-linked card is destroyed, you can negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent currently controls. This makes a great complement to Crystal Heart and is your best pick to summon after Stubborn Menhir. Dolmen will rocket up to 3400 attack, draw attacks away from Crystal Heart, keep your opponent from using any big boss monsters to mess with you, and if your opponent manages to snipe this off the field, you permanently negate the effects of every face-up card they control. Monsters, back row, you name it. As long as it stays face up on the field, they might as well just be vanillas. And if Crystal Heart survives after that, then Dolmen can come right back even stronger and ready to do that all over again. Plus, it's a draw engine, pitching Cyberses you don't need for fresh cards. It even triggers the search off of Pebble Dog. Suffice it to say, this is a really powerful card, which begs the question, why the name? This Dolmen is very valid. G-Golem Dignified Trilithon is a Link 4 monster with 3200 attack, requiring 2 or more Earth monsters as material. It also forces all of your opponent's monsters to attack this if able, and once per battle after damage calculation, if this card battles an opponent's monster, as a quick effect, you can send an Earth monster from your hand to the grave, and until the end of this turn, that opponent's monster loses 200 attack, also its effects are negated. I would have been fine with just the effect negation, don't know why they felt the need to tack on such a minuscule debuff, but I'll take it. And when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets any number of Link monsters you control, as a quick effect, you can negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. See, this is part of the reason I wish we could get 2 cards to co-link with Crystal Heart. It doesn't really need the attack boost, but the double attack works great with its effect shredding ability. But thankfully, Dolmen can co-link with this and Crystal Heart, giving Trilithon the immunity to on-field monster effects from your opponent. And it's a great complement because Trilithon can keep you safe from targeted effects from every other zone. Also, I was kind of worried about this beforehand, but I found out it does not cause a conflict in their continuous effects. After looking up some rulings, when it comes to your opponent must attack this card if able abilities, the opponent still gets to attack if you have more than one, even if you're not able to attack the second of the 2 monsters, but your opponent does get to choose which one they attack, which means they'll probably attack the one that does less damage. Though considering these are both massive chonkers, it's still kind of a lose-lose situation for them. It also helps you to keep your own hands clean. Let the rubble rabble do the work of attacking into you, and you'll come out on the other end with a dignified victory. Gravity Balance is a normal spell card that's also treated as a G-Golem card, which means you can search this off of Pebble Dog. It targets 2 of your Earth monsters with the same name that are banished and or in your grave, and you special summon both in defense position, but change their attack and defense to 0, and their effects are negated. Also destroy them during the end phase. If any number of Golem monsters you control would be destroyed by a battle or an opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your grave instead. Now this might seem pretty situational, and it kinda is, but it's very easy to access once you've resolved Pebble Dog a single time. You don't get to trigger any of their effects when summoned off this, but it is still 2 free pieces of material that, crucially, does not lock you into anything, unlike many of our other effects. This can certainly help with making your Golem Link monsters, or really anything that these summoned monsters can fit the requirements for. Odds are you'll be playing a lot of off-theme Earth monsters because of how small the archetype is, so anything they can give you access to is on the table as well. And to top it all off, it's got that sweet replacement effect in the grave, which can help keep your Crystal Heart and other associated Golems safe. It bites that you don't get the summoned monster's effects, but considering all the other goodies you get with it, I think this makes it pretty balanced. Alright, that's all the Golem cards, but what do we do with them? Well, as far as win cons go, we actually already have a pretty solid one. Summon a Dolmen or Trilithon backed up by Crystal Heart and just beat face until the game is over. So all we have to do is ensure we get there ASAP while keeping our opponent in the dust. But what can we play to help them out? Well, we need look no further than the oodles of cyber support we have lying around. Signet Mining can get us Pebble Dog, or Pebble Dog can be pitched as fuel to get another level 4 or lower Cyberse monster while searching a card to counteract the minus. Signet Crosswipe is some great and easy removal. The newly revealed Signet Rollback can summon any Cyberse that was banished after being summoned by Menhir, which could lead to lots of value. Any spare tokens can be turned into Lingaribo to deal with pesky trap cards, and Transcode Talker is, in fact, an Earth Link monster that works very well with co-linking. You might also want to think about teching them together with Mathmex. That theme also locks you into Cyberse, which is perfectly fine by us, and while you might be taking up the EMZ fairly often with your Link monsters, Final Sigma is a lot less of a game plan here and more of a contingency. Then you can get some negates and extension for your trouble, on top of a lot of attack stat manipulation, which seems a smidge helpful. If you want to be really flavorful, you could tech in some At-Ignisters, specifically Doshin to search for I Love Fusion. This can get us Earth Golem At-Ignister, a fusion that's very much aligned with our deck's game plan, and can even steal a pesky Link monster of our opponents for your troubles. As for Earth support, well, do I even need to say it? Vernisylphs. They do everything. Vera may not be a Cyberse, but slap him onto the field before that lock happens and you'll have a lot of value on your hands. The only drawback is that Crystal Heart is a water attribute monster, so if you want to use its revival effect, you'll need to make sure you do so before activating any of your Vernisylph's effects. This also, unfortunately, means you can't play Gozen Match. Rivalry is also an option, if of course you don't use the Vernisylphs. Notably, while the theme puts you in a lot of Cyberse locks, Crystal Heart can revive any Earthlink monster. There aren't very many that are worth discussing here, but if you find yourself not in a summon lock, those qualities describe Nightmare Cerberus perfectly, which not only provides removal when Link summoned, it makes it so co-linked monsters can't be destroyed by card effects, which I think is pretty neat. It's a little difficult to summon considering we're either summoning 2 copies of Pebble Dog or summoning 3 copies of the same token, but some creative usages of Link monsters can help with that. As for a silly tech pick, try Prohibit Snake. It's an interesting hand trap because anytime a Cyberse Link monster battles, it becomes a non-targeting compulse that's really tough to interact with because it all activates in the damage step. It can also recur itself and other level 4 and lower Cyberse monsters in your grave whenever you destroy a monster in battle, which sets up a pretty fun situation. You can Prohibit Snake a big boss on your first attack, then, using the second attack granted by Crystal Heart, you can run over a smaller monster to put Prohibit Snake back in your hand, setting it up immediately for next turn. And because it triggers on battling, not attacking, even when your opponent runs into you because of the forced attack, if it somehow threatens your Golem, you can just bounce it back. Easy as that. And that's all I have to say about Golem. This theme could definitely use some more cards, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a special product release a few more cards down the line. So keep an eye out for them, because this deck is at the fortunate crossroads of powerful links, easy material generation, and access to Cyberse support, something I'm sure will only get stronger once Cyberstorm access is revealed. But even if we never see another scrap of support for the theme, you can't deny that Golem has a lot of heart. Oh god, I've got to talk about Marincess now, don't I?